Hi, my name's Kent. I'm the creative specialist on the Google Web Designer team, and I'd like to show how to use SVG filters in Google Web Designer. I can import SVG files a few different ways. File, Import Assets, or simply drag one onto the stage. When importing SVG elements, you'll need to choose one of two options, Image or Inline. The default value, Import as Image, treats it like any other image, like your regular JPEG or PNG. With the Transform control, I can resize and see the image scales proportionally to fit the container. Scaling and alignment are built into SVG files and not affected by those controls in the Properties panel. That's the usual behavior of SVG images, although it can vary depending on the file. Some files will stretch and others not resize at all. That's all part of the SVG code. The other option for importing inline SVG is completely different and provides total control plus enables SVG filters. For example, now that same file stretches as I resize it. Notice the element is identified by SVG in the Layers panel. There are no image controls in the Properties panel, and the element won't be listed in the library. This file here is the one I imported as an image. So if you wanted a copy of the inline SVG version, you would copy and paste it on the stage. When you inline SVGs, the code is written directly into the document, and the thing I like about that is that now you can change it. Simple things like scaling and color, for example, or more complex like directly animating SVG elements in Code View. With the element selected, I'll switch to Code View and see the SVG tag highlighted. Be aware that a fair amount of rewriting may occur with your SVG code for security and optimization. I could change that stretching behavior here by deleting this attribute, then scan for a color and change it. Back in Design View, I see both changes in effect, and that's something you can't do when importing as an image. But the main power of inlining SVGs is access to SVG filters. However, I want to mention the final way to import SVGs is by selecting the code from the editor and pasting onto the stage, which automatically inlines the files, skipping the option to import as an image. And one tip, regardless of how you import your files, is if you ever need to increase the size, like blow it up 2 or 3 times larger, then do that with width and height instead of scale, because that'll keep your SVGs looking sharp like the vector art you're expecting. Now here's the filter part. Any inline SVG has this option when you right-click, Add SVG Filter. And now you have all these choices, like Bevel and Dissolve, and some are pretty crazy like Splash, and you can tune these to get some cool effects. I'll just use Aura and change the color. I'll also point out only one SVG filter can be applied to an element, and unfortunately they can't be animated. Now I'll take that other file, add a SVG filter, and at the bottom of my list are all the previously applied filters, so I can choose the same one. And I could change the color, save, and see all instances of that filter were updated. And if I want to make one different, I now have an Edit SVG Filter option, and I can just reapply a fresh filter from the menu. These SVG filters also work with shapes, elements created with this tool, pen, oval, and line, but not rectangle. For that, you could just draw a rectangle with the pen tool. For example, I'll use the line tool, increase the weight, and add a filter. Textured, lime green, and you can get some cool stylized effects this way. Now I'll use the pen tool and apply that same filter, save, increase the stroke weight to see the effect, and now you can still edit the path even when the filter is on it. These SVG filters can also be applied to text elements, but there are some limitations. For one, text fitting is not supported once you apply a filter. When an SVG filter is added, the text is converted to an SVG, and I won't be able to edit it with the text tool, at least until I remove the filter. So confirm here, and I can still edit the content, size, and color, but now only in this dialog. And your text is limited to one single line. Then apply a filter. Drop shadow. And I can unlink these directions to change the angle, and save. If at some point I want full control over the text again, I can remove the filter to restore text tool editing. For example, changing the style. Edit, select None, save, and now the text is returned to normal editing. Dynamic text is also supported, but again without text fitting, so you'd probably only use this when you can keep close control on your character count. For example, a price. At this size, I could tighten the letter spacing, like -5. The trick here is to make the text dynamic first, before the filter. So I'll right-click, Dynamic Bindings, use Standard, Brand Awareness, and my element is already selected, Text Content, and I'll use Title. Then I can add the filter, accept the conversion, choose one, like Bevel, accept this, and then I'll change my sample data to see the text is dynamic even when this filter is applied. In this case, a simple price change. One last topic is responsive text with SVG filters. I can change the text content on different ad sizes to make better use of the available space. In the responsive panel, click this checkbox to create the responsive file, and I'll scroll down to select a billboard size. Then back to Edit Base Document to create the headline with the text tool. Then I'll add a SVG filter and choose that same one. Now in the responsive panel, at 300 by 250, I need to make this smaller. But since text fitting isn't supported with the SVG filter, width isn't going to help me. So here's where scale could work, because I'm reducing the size. But at this size, the filter effect isn't as good because the headline is so small, although it could be bigger with fewer words. So I'll edit the SVG filter, and now I'm overriding the text content for this one size only, and I'll shorten the headline. Now I can increase the size, and I'm still below 1. And when I do a responsive preview, I'll see my text with the SVG filter applied and using different text on these sizes. That's it for SVG filters in Google Web Designer. Thanks for watching.